Okay, we're excited to speak with both John and Cheryl Leiber, whose previous home was at Steam Pump Ranch. That's now Oro Valley's historic park. They have joined us to share some interesting stories about their family history and the time on the ranch, as well as some of the individuals that lived at that property. So, John, how did you come to live at the ranch?
Well, I was not born there, but shortly after I was born, I moved there with my mom and dad.
And older brother.
And yes, and older brother. My grandfather, Jack Proctor, and I'm sure you've got lots of history on him, lived in the main house, and the Leiber family originally lived in what is the old Orndorff house. And
Push house.
what's that?
Well, it's known as a push house to them.
Right. And in any case, I lived there up and all the way through college. And not law school, but college. And then when I got married to Cheryl, we moved into a house off of Lester Street in Tucson. Then my grandfather, Jack Proctor, came to visit one day and asked us to move back to the ranch, which we did as husband and wife. But we then lived in what is known as
Carlos's house.
it was actually my aunt, Minnie Ravenscroft, who was an employee of the Pioneer Hotel when Granddad Proctor was the managing director. Anyway, we moved into the Carlos's house and lived there for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
Until Jack Proctor died. Then we moved into his house, what was also known as the Big House.
After
Proctor
Sean,
died.
well, after Sean was born. Sean was born 3 months after, that's our oldest Sean. He was born 3 months after Pappy died. So we spent 3 months trying to get that big house oriented, cleaned up, because he basically lived, he had a cook and he basically just lived on the back porch in his bedroom and stuff,
I see.
So, how much more do you want to know?
Well, it's very interesting. When did you and Cheryl get married?
August 31st, 1968.
1968.
Yeah.
And how did you come to live at the ranch?
When I married him,
Okay.
he lived at the ranch, and then one of the two little rooms on either side of the driveway and the open court, the little garages next to the push house. And he made that into an apartment and he lived there. But we went out on Sundays, every Sunday, and had dinner with his grandpa.
Oh, excellent.
Right.
Excellent. So one of the individuals that lived at the ranch was a celebrity, a 3-time Major League All-Star baseball player named Hank Leiber. What was your relationship to Hank, John?
That was my father.
Okay. And obviously Cheryl's father-in-law.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, we get all types of questions about Hank Leiber. Everybody wants to know about his baseball exploits. And when did you first become aware that your father was a baseball player?
Oh, God. I became aware at a very early age, like maybe 5. And of course, we all played baseball at the ranch. My brother, Butch, not his real name was Henry E. Leiber Jr. Anyway, he was a pitcher, or thought he was. And consequently, guess who became the catcher?
Wow.
Me.
Yep.
He was as wild as a March hare. And Dad would entertain all the Cleveland Indians who trained here in spring training. And of course, Mother always had them out for dinner at least a dozen times a year, the whole team. And she was very well known for a dish that she prepared, which was tamale pie. And I can't tell you the recipe, but it was basically tamales and all sorts of spices. And they just loved that. They'd eat it by the quarts.
She made it in a ceramic bowl. I mean, an old, big, like a Mexican bowl.
It was a Mexican
Was
bowl.
it a Mexican bowl? I mean, it was like this, and it was about this deep. And we took hours clearing up tamales and throwing in onion and olives and I don't even remember what all, but I mean, it was like a 3-hour ordeal to get this, and then covered with cheese and then baked for, several hours till the cheese was all melted.
How many people are we talking about coming to the ranch?
Oh, during those days, there would be probably 50.
Wow, the whole team, managers and all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Dad was very close to the sports authority, the radio and TV host by the name of Jimmy Dudley, Dudley, who was very well known in Tucson. And they played at the High Corbett Field, the old High Corbett,
Yes.
which today is through the University of Arizona.
No, it's not the U of A field.
No, but they played there quite a bit.
Yeah.
In any case, when back to growing up, I started catching for my brother in junior high school. And then all the way through, Dad had always fought and tried to convince every major league
Manager?
yeah, to come out and watch him. And consequently, there were a number of farm teams that did come out and watch him. But again, he was as wild as a March hare. And he never had great control, although he pitched for our high school team, which was then the Amphitheater Panthers. And was a varsity player and did pitch, but it was a zoo.
Well, you mentioned your mother and Betty.
Yes.
And how did Betty meet Hank?
Oh, God, there's so many stories going around about that. Mother was, when she met him, uh, she was a student at the University of Arizona. The Kappa Gamma sorority group. And during that romance period, Dad, who was a Phoenician, would come to Tucson regularly and primarily stay at the Proctor home, the Proctor Leiber home. And Granddad Proctor, again, was the managing director of the Pioneer Hotel. Um, he or she became more involved with Dad, Hank, after he was hit by in an exhibition game in New Orleans with the Cleveland Indians. Dad was playing for the New York Giants, and he was a long ball hitter. I'll tell you a story. Babe Ruth, during his later years, was asked on a number of occasions who he thought upcoming stars would break his home run record of 60 home runs. Dad, or Ruth, always quoted Dad as the one that could do it, until he was hit by a pitcher from the Cleveland Indians by the name of Bob Feller. A number of the Indians came over to Dad prior to his entering the batter's box and said, "Hank, don't dig in against this guy. We don't even take batting practice against him." Dad's response was, "Sounds to me like he needs, quote unquote, knocked off." And so he dug in. In the first pitch of the game, they didn't have batting helmets in those days. And the first pitch of the game came right for Dad's head and put him in the Mayo Clinic for about 6 months.
Yeah.
During this time, Mother became more involved with him. She would fly back and see him in the hospital and what have you. They were married in 1940.
New Year's.
Huh?
Wasn't it New Year's? They were traveling to San Diego for the Rose Bowl and stopped in Yuma and got married.
All right.
To this day, Bob Feller is still noted as one of the fastest pitchers in the history of baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad. That happened to Hank. What brought Hank to Tucson? Was it the University of Arizona?
Who's Dad?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, he was an all-star player for Pop McHale at the University of Arizona. He played football, basketball, and baseball.
Yeah. There's a plaque that shows and tells, his stats for the 3 years he was there, 29, 30, and 31. And he was a whatever you call it, letterman. Yeah,
Yep.
a three-sport letterman there at U of A.
Yep.
But he came down, to go to school
I
and
see.
play ball.
Okay. Okay.
And then the New York Giants came out to see what he could do, and he was drafted into the Giants organization.
Yes, I understand. There's an article that the Giants manager thought he was one of the best collegiate prospects that he ever saw. So he's quite well noted.
I believe that,
Yes. In fact, some of Hank's baseball highlights included he hit 2 home runs in the same inning in 1935. In 1936, he hit a long fly ball about 490 feet that was caught by Joe DiMaggio during the 1937 World Series.
Yeah.
Maybe the longest fly out in baseball history. He also hit 364 in the 1937 World Series. Are some of the highlights. He was a 3-time baseball All-Star, 1938, 1940, and 1941. So during his career, what would you say that Hank was most proud of his baseball career?
Well, that's very hard to say.
Okay.
He was very proud of being a New York Giant. And then when he was traded after he was hit by Feller to the Chicago Cubs, he also liked Chicago and probably had a bigger fan base there than New York.
Okay.
Can I interject something?
Sure.
Talking about, football. Zane, our youngest son, was doing demolition in Catalina on some old houses for Tom Hayes Construction, and Tom's son was working. And so Evan was bulldozing, and they were adobe houses, and they were stuffed with newspaper between the walls, And I don't remember Tom's son's name, but he's pulling out paper, and he tells Evan to stop. He said, "Leiber, is that related to you?" Because it's misspelled. And it's a newspaper article from November 24th, 1929. A husky and well-trained squad of Arizona Wildcats came out to find blah, blah, blah. It's torn up. Anyway, Hank scored the only touchdown in that game, and they ended up winning 6-0. There was no point after, and they were close to a second touchdown. But his mom had this framed for me because it came out of the wall, insulating an old house in Catalina.
Excellent. Very nice story.
The interesting thing about the ball that he hit in Yankee Stadium, and I still don't know whether this is true or not, and I met Joe DiMaggio twice in my lifetime and I always wanted to ask this question. But at the time, the President of the United States, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was being ushered into the stadium when Dad hit that ball. And Joe DiMaggio, playing center field, came out of the field and jumped on the top of the limousine to catch this ball.
Wow.
I never heard that.
No, that's amazing.
It was
The
amazing.
limousine was on the Polo Ground fields.
Yeah, they were coming, because of his paralysis, they were bringing him in. I remember hearing something about that, but I didn't know that DiMaggio had jumped on
No.
to the vehicle, but I knew that Roosevelt was there.
Cleats and all. Didn't
Oh,
even
well.
take his shoes off.
All right. So are there any other interesting stories you would like to share? We're talking next we did after baseball, but if there are any other stories, this would be a good time to share them.
Oh, there's a million stories, but many of which I have forgotten. But it was a conquistador here in Tucson,
Well, he was one of the original group
founder.
that found the Conquistador um, club that sponsored the golf tournaments and donate all the money to the various charities.
Huh?
You know, it's not. I don't know. They went through multiple sponsors, but um, it was just called the Tucson Open.
And granddad, was initially a co-founder of the Tucson Country Club and became president.
That would be Jack Proctor.
Yeah, Jack Proctor. And Dad, of course, was ushered in as a member. He was a fantastic golf player. Uh, I can't tell you how many tournaments, almost up to the day he died, he attended all over the United States. He was invited to come and play.
Wow.
And many of those tournaments he won. He was a scratch golfer. Scratch meaning zero. He didn't have a handicap.
Wow. Very nice.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
It really is.
The other thing is what put him out of baseball permanently was being beamed a second time. And who was that?
Cliff Mellon.
Cliff Mellon. Yeah. Hit him again, and that was the end of baseball.
Right, right. Yeah, that's very unfortunate. Yeah, batting helmets are a very important part of the game today, aren't they?
Oh, wow.
All right. We also understand that Hank managed the Tucson Cowboys in 1950.
Correct.
I wish I have some of the locker room keys chains that were a cowboy boot, the shape of a cowboy boot. They're in that con box out there that's been there for almost 12 years and can't access in. There's too much stuff in there, but I have some great paraphernalia and stuff from back in those Cowboys days.
Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the ranch. You already talked about you and your brother Butch, Hank Jr., playing baseball at the ranch. Did you play any other sports while growing up at the ranch?
Yes, I played primarily basketball. My uncle, Bill Leiber, brought out to the ranch the backboard and the pole and put it up. And I was out there literally during the summertime 10 hours a day practicing. I went on to play varsity basketball at Amphitheater High and eventually became a honorable mention all-state candidate. The tallest basketball player in Tucson went to South Point High, and he was just under 7 feet. So and most teams had 6'8", 6'9" players. We didn't.
Did it help you to have a father who was involved with sports?
Oh, absolutely. He was very much, and he would come out and practice with me at the ranch. He was at every ball game. And that's the only sport I played in high school. Although, I had vast experience as a catcher there was another athlete there by the name of Glenn Ezell, who just recently died, who went on to catch and play, God, what team?
I've lost it too, but he went on and played for a number of years, 10 or so, and then he coached and managed up until maybe 10 years ago. I think he was still a scout.
Yeah.
He went on to be a scout.
Okay.
And he just passed away like 2 months ago. It was very sad.
Yeah. How about your brother Butch? Was he out there with you, or was he doing his own thing at the ranch?
Well, he played football and he never played basketball and baseball. Became, as a freshman, a ball player for the University of Arizona, but never went anywhere.
Okay. Okay. How about your kids? What type of sporting activities did they participate in at the ranch?
Oh, you name it. They all played soccer. They all played baseball. Missy played Little League until she was 12. She played through majors, and they wanted her to play juniors, but at that age, at 12, you got to move to softball because girls are not going to compete at the junior high or high school level. And she was a really, good player. And they also, Sean swam at CDO on this, well, he was on the diving team. I guess he thought that was really cool because they only had the little diving board at the pool at home. He was just an adventurer. They all rode motorcycles, starting at the age of about 4, because accidents on tricycles are much worse than learning to balance on a bicycle. And then they moved on to motorcycles. And of course, they had all the hills behind the ranch and the wash, they could ride for miles. And then they start doing jumps, and then they started doing jumps riding down from the main gate as fast as they could. They had built a, what do you call it, a ramp?
A ramp, yes.
And into the pool. And I had no idea because they moved the ramp away from the pool. I knew it was there, but I didn't pay any attention. I thought they were just doing little sporty type stuff. And I came home from work one afternoon, and I come in the gate, and here's one of their friends, Zach, whipping down up on the thing and up and over. And he just barely made the pool. He almost splatted
on his bike.
Oh, on his bike. What do they call that now? Trick, I don't know. It's not motocross, but I know that they have competitive.
Yeah, I know they do things like that with the X Games and things.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's terrorizing. The hills behind the ranch are terrorizing.
Yes, they are. Come here, Rye. What do you do? Sport-wise. What do you do a couple of nights a week?
I don't play. I do jiu-jitsu. It's karate. And we're starting CDO Little League Baseball.
Okay.
And we do rodeo.
What does your buckle say?
We do an association called Queen Creek. And it just says Queen Creek 2018 all-around champion.
All right, you're an all-around champion. Congratulations.
Just all around. Let's see, 2018, you were still Pee-wees, weren't you? Pee-wees is, I believe, 3 to 7, and it's boys and girls both. And they have 5 set events. They do barrel racing, they do poles, they do flags, they do goat tail pole, and dummy
roping.
Dummy steer roping, which is roping up.
Little fake cow.
Fake cow,
Excellent.
And so all around means that she scored the most points in all 5 events.
Keeping up the family history.
And Jake also does it, and Reese has done it. She got her first horse when she was 3, and so she's been riding. But the junior rodeo station, there's none in Tucson. So they belong to the club out of Queen Creek, but they don't practice or anything. It's just the organization so that you get entered by the organization into these various rodeos. We were in Gilbert last week. They've been to Williams twice this year. We'll be going, they were in Camp Verde. We're going to be in Sonoyta. Where else? There's someplace before Sonoyta.
So you get to go to a lot of different locations. In fact, your family helps us out quite a bit at the ranch putting on exhibitions for rodeo. We certainly appreciate that. We look forward to the next time we can get out there. In fact, what we'd like to do is watch you do some of the rodeo.
Okay.
Are you up for that?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Before we jump into that, are there any other stories that you would like to share with us that we didn't cover today?
Well, Zane
Thank you.
went to Central Arizona out of CDO.
That's our number 2 boy.
Yeah, he's the second son. And he played baseball up there. He played mostly third base and outfield, but he was a good power hitter also, like Hank. And his second year, his sophomore year, they had quite a few scouts coming, to a couple of games in the spring. And he went 0-4 at bat. And he was so teed off, he went into the dugout and hit the wall and broke his knuckles. So he wasn't going to be holding the bat. And the coach said, well, if you're not going to be batting and you can't put a mitt on, you can pitch. And so he put him in with the pitchers to pitch. And he turned out to be...
Well, the story about his becoming a pitcher was that they were playing the minor league team. What was it? I forget the name of the team.
No, he got drafted because of his other abilities, not his hitting. He was drafted by the White Sox. And
Chicago White Sox.
Yeah, he was just 19 years old.
I see.
So off he went. And actually, he was drafted pretty high. And the major thrill of my life was to tell Jerry Stitt, the U of A baseball coach, when he called 3 days later and asked to speak to Zane, and I said, he's not home. I'm his mother. May I help you? And he said, yes, this is Jerry Stitt from the U of A. And I wanted to see if Zane wanted to walk on to the U of A. And I said, gee, I'm so sorry. He got drafted by the White Sox. And he went, huh? But Stitt never drafted from Tucson.
Oh.
He didn't pull from the local talent. So that was a major to-do for me. I'm
Very
sorry. He's on his way.
The interesting story is that when he was at Central and playing this minor league team, that the third base scout said to him, watching him throw the ball to first base, the coach said, that's 100-mile-an-hour throw you just made.
Very few players can achieve that even today.
Yeah.
And anyway, after he broke his left hand, the coach or the scout went to his
Coach?
and said, hey, you ought to try to pitch that kid. And that's when he started pitching.
All right, we have 2 more grandchildren joining us today, Cheryl. Who are these fine young people?
These are Zane's children. This is Braylon. She's the oldest. And this is Blaine. And they used to do rodeo, but not so much anymore. Done some gymcanas too. But Braylon's really into softball. She's on a club softball team, and so she plays, pretty much year round. And Blaine does club baseball, and he's a pitcher, kind of like Dad and Grandpa tried a little. And he also plays outfield and what, first base? What? Outfield?
Okay. Well, they're sporting some fancy belt buckles. What are those for?
That was when they did rodeo. They were with the other 3 kids doing rodeo for about 4 years. And his says 2018 top 10 all around champion. And Raylan says reserve. Is that Florence? Florence Cowboy Triathlon 2020.
Excellent. Excellent. We started out with Hank and his baseball career, but that family tradition of sports just kept rolling right through the generations with Hank's sons, John and Butch, also with their kids and also with the grandkids. So sports is one of the pillars of our community. The ranch is one of the gems of Oro Valley. So we wanted to bring all of that together. So we want to thank you guys for joining us today here for this interview. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks, guys.
Throw.